let's get ready to make our tiny teacups. First thing we're going to chat about is the template. You can't make your tiny teacup without the template. Foundation paper piecing is a little bit different to traditional patchwork in that you're not cutting your fabrics to certain sizes and sewing them together to create the block. You're actually going to be sewing onto the paper template. It's foundation paper piecing, so here's your paper foundation. Clues in the title, right? So print off one template per cup that you're going to make. All the pieces for one cup are on one page, but trust me, it's going to be hard to stop at just one teacup. So go ahead and print off a couple because you'll probably make more. So your template is ready to go. 4 sections to it. Our cup where we're going to place the fussy cut, the handle, and then you have the top and the bottom, which are blank sections. And by that, I mean they don't require any sewing. They will just be cut pieces of fabric. So you can see on here, they're just blank pieces of fabric. Now, the reason why I don't just say cut fabric X inches by X inches for the top and the bottom is because I have this pattern scaling up to different sizes. You can end up with really weird sounding sizes. Like, it might be like 2 1/8 inch, which is a little bit annoying. Plus, I'm not really good with inches because I'm an Aussie and we work in centimeters. So once we get like below a quarter, I'm a bit lost. So template, this will help you cut it. So what I've done here is I have cut my template into sections, ready to piece. And I'm just going to show you what we're going to do with our background sections. Oh, first I should mention, when you cut your template up, just cut a little bit outside the seam allowance line. So you have 2 lines. The darker line will be where you're sewing on, and the outer line is the seam allowance. Make sure you cut outside the seam allowance because we will be trimming back to this line later. If you cut into the firm dark line, your block will be too small. So seam allowance is important. Just cut around it. It doesn't have to be precise. Rough cut is just fine. Now, what we're going to do when we have blank sections like this for the background, get your fabric that you've cut for the background. Now, I have cut mine to 2 inches by width of fabric because that's wide enough for this. Now, these are fairly close to the same size when you actually put them together. So I'm a little bit of a lazy quilter. I should have prefaced the whole video with that. I'm a bit of a lazy quilter. I'll sort of make things a bit easier where I can. If you're quite precise, feel free to cut these separately. Otherwise, if you feel like being a lazy quilter like me, pop it on a double length of fabric. See how it's doubled up like that? And then you can just pin it into place like that. And then when it's time to trim, all you're going to do is just trim on that seam allowance line. So the lighter line on the outside, that's where you're trimming. Okay, so you can just trim that. You can actually go ahead and do that now before you even start piecing, and then just leave it to sit to the side. Now, if you are fussy cutting your background fabric, like I'm just using an all over print here, so it doesn't matter. Or if you're using a solid, it doesn't matter. But if you're using a print and it needs to be like a certain way up, like it's a directional print, then make sure you put your template, your blank template, on the back side of the fabric like that. Okay, because that's going to be the front of your block. That's the back of your block. So you want to make sure you have your template on the right side. If it's directional or you want to fussy cut something and highlight it, just to make sure that you've got that correct. Then you can just set that aside for when we're ready after we're done piecing. Now, the other thing you can do while you're cutting up your templates is make a little dummy one that you can use to help you when you're fussy cutting. So all I've done is I have just cut the cup off the main template, and then I've just cut the inside out. So it's like a little window so that I can look at fabrics, and it will help you when you're auditioning fabrics. So you want a fussy cut. You can work out if they're going to fit, if they're going to be too big, or how you need to center it. Okay, that's the template. That's the very first part where we're starting. Now we're going to talk about fabric. This is perhaps my most favorite part of foundation paper piecing, and that's choosing the fabric. especially when we're talking about fussy cutting, because that's when you get to dig into your stash and find those favorite prints that you've been hoarding, dig out the ones that you've been too unsure of what project to make, don't want to cut into the fabric because you don't have the perfect project. So here you go, perfect project, go get that fabric. Okay, so let's chat about actually using the fabric to fussy cut. First, what is fussy cutting? Fussy cutting, my friends, is where you selectively choose a part of the fabric to feature in your block. So it means you're not just cutting a section of fabric and whatever lands in the middle of your cup lands in the middle of your cup. Fussy cutting is choosing it to be a feature. So for this particular one, I've chosen to feature the bee, and I also chose to have half a flower because I just liked how it sat there on the edge of the cup. And then I've centered it in the middle of my block. So that's a very rough guide to fussy cutting. Now, when you're choosing your fabrics, there's just a couple of things to keep in mind for your prints. One is the margin around the focus point. So what I mean by that, you can see I did the ship here, and here's the print that I have it from. There is lots of background around the ship, which means it's perfect for fussy cutting because I'm not going to be cutting into another motif. I'm not losing one of these birds. I've got lots of background and I can choose how I want to center it. Now the ship was a little big for my cup, you can see. So I just chose to feature it like it's kind of sailing around the cup. The other good thing with this sort of a print, you've got lots of background here that you can use as kind of like a filler fabric. And by that, I mean, use that for like the handle on your cup. So I've used the background there and it makes the cup look really cohesive because it's all the same fabric. Or you can always use a different fabric like this and make it a feature and have something different for the handle. Okay, so that's one print that you could use. Another one is like this. Now, you know I love my rainbows. And like this would be fantastic on a teacup. I would love this in real life if I actually drank tea. But you could use this one, and the butt is coming. It is a lot closer to the other motifs. You don't have as much background space around it to cut it and have a clean margin around it. You can absolutely still use it, just beware you might cut into some of the other rainbow or some of the clouds or something like that. Now a print like this one, look at these cute sheepies, man. So cute. This is a little trickier to fussy cut because it's such a densely packed print. If you cut into it, no matter where you cut, you're likely to have a decapitated sheep. Sorry, sheepy. But it's still going to look cute. Like, you know, we'll just ignore that edge sheep, right? So you could choose one of these. Like this little black sheep would probably be my choice for the focus in the middle of a teacup because it's just so cute. Now, when you're looking at prints to go, is this going to work for my tiny teacup? That's when that little template doozy wazzle thingy majig comes in handy, right? Because look, you can put it on there and work out if you center it there, or I can almost get that sheep's face in if I put the little black sheep at the bottom, but I quite like it at the middle. So if I was fussy cutting it, I would probably move it over here. So I've got that little sheepy's face and these guys around the centered one. Means he's not right smack bang in the middle of the cup, but I have less decapitated sheep and that makes me happy. So use your template. If you don't want to cut up the template, you can also just use your page and see if you hold it up to the light, you can see the lines through it. So you can do that just as easily if you don't want to cut a template like that. I tend to just hold it up. Like I would cut that down like this. Here's one I prepared earlier. And then I would just put my fabric on it and hold it up to the light so that I can see if, like, say I wanted to put that middle rainbow there. It's probably hard to see on the camera, but I can sort of move it around then and see if it's going to fit. And that's how I tend to do it. But if you have a template pre-cut like that, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Especially when you're digging through your stash and you're like, oh, is that going to fit? Is that rainbow going to be too big? You can just put your template over the top to see. Now this is mostly novelty fabrics that I've shown here with prints. And I know not everyone has a massive novelty collection in their stash, and that's okay. They do not have to be novelty prints to be cute tiny teacups. You can absolutely use florals. Like this would work really well. This is one of my prints from Bloom, which is my newest collection for Riley Blake. And that just happens to fit perfectly in the center of a cup. It looks like kind of like a real teacup, right? So that would be quite cute. So florals are always great. If you have a favorite print that you think would look really pretty, go for it. It does not have to be novelty. All it has to do is make your quilty heart sing. The other one, and I think these are quite underrated when it comes to fussy cutting, is stripes. You can really add some cool detail when you use a stripe in your fussy cutting. And it doesn't have to be simply like this, like, you know, a vertical stripe or a horizontal stripe. I particularly like putting it on an angle like that. So my teacup, if I have a diagonal stripe across my teacup, I can get a lot more colors in it. So that would make for a really fun teacup as well. You can see in these teacups, I've used some different ones. So these, like this cute kitten, was like quite a big print and too big for a teacup particularly, like if I wanted the whole kitten in there. But it was perfect to just feature the kitten's face. So I decided to go with it anyways. These little cameo prints, they work beautifully. And then I was able to add some of the flowers on the handle. And then like I mentioned before with the ship, didn't quite fit, but I made it work. So it's really a personal preference when you come to choosing your fabrics for your fussy cutting. Just have fun and really just go with something that's going to make you happy. When you're finished making it, you go, look what I made. Background fabric, I didn't really talk about that, but honestly, use again what makes you happy. I've used different ones. I've used like a plain one here. That's actually a tone on tone with a little print on there. Or I've used a solid, which works well. The only thing I would recommend staying away from in terms of your background fabric is using a directional print. It's a lot trickier in foundation piecing when you're using a directional print to get the print to go the same way across all these little sections. So I would suggest using a basic tone on tone or a solid.